Hi, I'm Shannon Symonds, and I'm the author of Safe House, which is a book that is a novel, and it's fiction, but it talks a little bit about domestic violence. And I've been reading it chapter by chapter. We're on chapter 10. You can find them on my YouTube channel. And at the end of each chapter, I talk a little bit about what inspired me to write the book and what inspired me to write this chapter. Today's chapter is a short chapter. We get to know Officer Hart. In the book, we've met Grace the advocate, who really likes Officer Hart. And we've met Emily and Kelly, who are in tough situations, and Emily's daughter, Amber. So today we kind of get to know Hart a little bit. It's called Connections because it's fascinating to me the things that start honest and frank and important conversations between advocates, survivors, and officers. And probably the same is true for you and friends and people that you meet in your life. Officer Hart was finally ready to leave the station. He was tired, but not too tired to give Iron Pot a hard time. He had noticed something while they worked, and Hart had waited all day to make fun of his partner. Iron Pot was putting his things in a locker when Hart found him. "Quite a night, huh?" Hart said. "Yeah, I wish we'd have found Burke. Day shift will watch." "So I noticed something tonight," Hart said innocently. "Yeah?" Hart pointed at Iron Pot's finger. "Nice ring," Hart said with a smile. "You making fun of my jewelry and accessories? My wife dresses me. You'll have to answer to her." CTR ring. Corrupt the righteous or choose the right? "How do you know?" "I used to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ," Hart said sheepishly. "Well, how does that work, used to be?" Iron Pot said sarcastically. "Well, I went to primary with a friend for years. The missionaries even taught me the lessons at my house, but I outgrew it when I went to junior high." "Baptized?" Excuse me, not the COVID, not the Rona. "Yes." "You're kidding. Why is that so hard to believe?" "It's not. It's just that I don't think baptisms wear off, so I think you're still a member of the secret club." "So where's your ring?" "Very funny." "No, I think it's great." Iron Pot slapped Hart on the back. "My girlfriend had me baptized in her church. She says the Church of Jesus Christ isn't real. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and millions of members are going to be upset to find that out." Funny again. "I can't help it. It's a gift." With that, Hart left the building. Watching Hart leave, Iron Pot found himself wondering at the turn of events. He'd put his daughter's ring on his pinky when he found it in the driveway on his way to work. At the time, he'd complained to himself that his kids were messy and irresponsible. This was a nice ring. He was sick of picking up after them. Now he was pondering. So there's a little break, and we get to follow Hart to his home. This is my backyard. We're in the middle of Corona, and it is mandatory to wear masks in public in Oregon starting on the 15th, so I thought I would be respectful and just hang out. It's not all a lovely garden like this. This just happened to grow all on its own. On the other side is a wagon, sand toys, buckets, truck, and a bicycle, and chickens. So Hart's house is much nicer. Hart thought about Iron Pot on his way home. Iron Pot had a great family, cute kids, and he seemed to love his wife. Hart hadn't told Iron Pot, but he and his girlfriend had split. The breakup had created an ache and an empty place in his stomach, but he knew it wasn't from the breakup. He'd known that she was wrong from the beginning. She was way too loud, too drunk, and too fun to be wife material. Her blue eyelids got on his nerves. Everyone else loved her at a party, but day after day, that was another matter. Every night, it was a few beers before dinner, and her volume went up. She hung all over everyone and thought everything was funny. At least he'd never let her move in or get that close. She'd gone to a community church. The only reason she went to church was because her Harley riding buddies did, and they met weekly for an after-service ride. Church ended with a ride, barbecue, and more beer. But she had looked great on the back of his bike. Maybe he'd sell the bike. Hart used to feel invincible, but not lately. Now he felt old. He had a house. It was a real man's house, a log home kit put together by a company that specialized in log homes. He'd done most of the finish work himself, including building his own shaker-style cabinets. The kitchen had cement countertops with impressions of ferns pressed into the backsplash. It was a real work of art that Blue Eyelids had not appreciated. He pulled up his long gravel drive, past the berry bushes and into the pines. The pines created a barrier that made him feel like he was miles away from anyone. When they opened, there was his home, his project. It sat on a small rise in a clearing beside the river. Beside it, the river ran shallow this time of year. The rise kept him safe during spring runoff, but now he could see brown, blue, and gray rocks in the clear, sparkling water. It was a perfect river to fish. A few days ago, he'd finished his latest addition, a tire swing. He had hung it in the big tree in front of the cabin. Funny, he thought. He didn't have kids, but he couldn't resist. It just belonged there. Hart parked his Jeep and looked at the empty house. It needed something. Suddenly it hit him. What's the point without someone to share it with? The tire swing swung in the autumn breeze, and Hart imagined a little boy swinging and waiting for Daddy. This chapter was inspired a little bit by my own life. I was a single mom many years ago for very good reasons, probably not very different than Grace. And I met someone that was not a police officer. And it was a tough time in my life, and I probably wasn't making very good decisions, but I had 5 kids. And, you know, a lot of times we look around and we see people in our world and we make assumptions about them. You might look at Hart, and you might see him on his motorcycle, and he's a police officer, and you might make assumptions, and you might not know that he's very lonely. It was my privilege to, as an advocate, ride along with officers in our county and get to know them. One of them passed away not too long ago. He was shot in the line of duty. And I got to ride with him in his first weeks on the job, and I got to know him, and I got to know a little bit about his history, and we had some connections through the church that were positive for me and not very positive for him, and we had some connections through family and through all kinds of places. You know, you look around and you meet people in your line of work, in your job, and in your community, and you may know just enough about them to know that they've been in violence or that they've experienced rough things, and you may make a lot of assumptions. But there are some really good people out there, and my second husband was one of them. He rode a motorcycle because his sister wrecked his truck. I didn't know that when I met him. And he had been single for 9 years. He'd been sober for 6 years, and lived a few doors down. And I made a lot of assumptions about him when I saw him with somebody with blue eyelids on the back of his motorcycle. And the truth was is that when we met, he really, really had just wanted a family, and his ex-wife had not. So as you go about your day this week or in the next few days, think about people around you and what assumptions are you making, and maybe take a second look and get to know each other and ask questions. So it will make you a better person, a better support for survivors, and a better minister to those around you. Thanks.